All right, I think we're ready to get started. Welcome back. My name is Heather Van Cura. I'm one of the committee members for the career track, the international career track. And as I mentioned a moment ago, this is our panel for the day, with the topic being how to transition from a technical role into a leadership role. And today we have 4 panelists with us. I'm going to moderate the panel. So I'll just tell you a little bit about me, and then I'll ask all of the panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about your background and your current role. So for myself, I have been working with the Java developer community since 2000, so a couple of decades now. And I'm currently the Senior Director and Chairperson of the Java Community Process Program, which is the international standards group that sets the specification for the Java platform. And I'm honored to have 4 panelists with me here today. So would each of you please share with me a little bit about yourself and your background, and then what your current role is. And I'll just start with how you are on my screen, which is Plínio. You're up there first. So Plínio, welcome back. I know you're in the first session, but go ahead and introduce yourself in case anyone wasn't in that session.
Thanks, Heather. I'm Plínio. I'm working with HR almost 8 years from now. I started my career as a recruiter in a consulting, but in 2017, I was hired by Wiz as a business partner. And 2019, the company was in a growth process and became the opportunity to be a leadership. So I'm in a position as a human resource manager, that has people analytics, compensation strategy, and other things in my area. So basically, that's it.
Thank you. And Helena?
So my name is Helena. I work at Wiz for almost 3 years now. That was actually my first job in the HR business. And now I've been working with the learning experiences of Wizards and how they develop the skills that we want them to develop, such as technical skills and also soft skills. And that's what I've been doing right now. We are from Brasilia, which is the capital of Brazil. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, welcome. And Max?
Yeah, Max, the senior engineer in Red Hat. My career has been 20 years in software development. I started as a normal software developer. I joined a company called JBoss, working on open source projects, and just always led technical projects. And then I built this thing called Red Hat Developer Studio, which is this for 10, 12 years I did in tooling. And then I got a kid and I realized the way I did stuff doesn't scale well. And I actually turned in to become a manager. Did that for a few years. Then I actually took a year off as a sabbatical. And now I'm back, and I'm back to being an individual contributor, but I'm still doing technical leadership as a distinguished engineer in Red Hat. So I'm being all the way around and back to from technical to people and back again. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And Daniel?
Yeah, just can you hear me well? Because
Yes.
the microphone is not working. I had to switch to another. But thank you for having me here. I started as a software development career, and I kind of been stacking roles through the years, like management, and then I started playing more with education and teaching and undergrad courses, and then I started entrepreneurship things like building companies and starting products. And latest, I'm starting a company related to basketball training. So I'm kind of I don't like career so much. I love projects and side projects, and well, I'm going to talk about that later. But the thing for me is more like stacking kids. I have two children and I'm parent, so this is the way I care about life, like having time with my kids and working in different projects and building myself as a team player or building new stuff. So, but it's I would say the technical side is always there, always willing to build a line of code or stuff like that. So yeah, but that's it.
Okay, welcome, Daniel. So I think a lot of interest from the community in terms of people being in technical roles and having technical backgrounds and wondering how they can migrate into more of a leadership role. And myself, as I work often with developers, I work almost exclusively with developers. That is a very common question that I get from people is, how do I do that? So it seems to be a little bit of a mystical thing, and all of the panelists today have successfully done that. So I thought we'd focus a little bit on that. So now that we know a little bit about you and your background and what you're doing now, so maybe think back to, that transition point. So how did you go about transitioning into, more of a leadership role? Like it sounds like all of us still have a technical aspect to our careers, but how did you start to make that transition into a role that was focused or had a component of leadership in it, from strictly contributing to the technical? So I'll ask all the panelists to share, but
Yeah.
you want to start, Plínio? It looks like you were ready to talk, or Max?
Yeah, go Max. Yeah, I would say small teams and small companies. That was the way that pushed me to the management or leadership roles. Like someone had to take the lead, and I was there, and I did it. But I didn't have a clue about how to do that. So but being a small team where you can do all sorts of things, that was the key for me. I believe if I was in a big company, I would be like I'm very introvert. I can tell you that. So for me, it's kind of a go. So okay, I'll do that. Okay, no problem.
Yeah, that actually makes a great link with our presentation we just made, which is about how to become a leader and how to prepare our employees here at WIS to become a leader. And just as Daniel said, sometimes you just have to do it. You get the chance and you have to get the job done and you become a leader. But this is definitely not the best way to become a leader. I think this is probably you have struggled a lot with some things that you were not expecting you would have to deal with. And this is something that I think it's the key point on making the transition. Like, you have to be aware that it's not enough to only have technical skills developed, but you also have to understand how to manage people, how to manage big groups, small groups, how you're gonna deliver some tasks you were not used to do because you didn't have to do it. And it's not only being a technical role model. You have to learn a lot of other skills to be a great leader.
Well, I think, like Daniel said, it can be organic, right? So for Daniel, it was, it happened to be kind of organic that the situation presented itself, and Daniel, stepped up to the plate, and so to speak, and took on some additional responsibilities. But oftentimes, it can be more deliberate. So that's why it's good to have the different perspectives of the panelists. And also, I think the entire, in terms of like over the last decade or two, it definitely has changed. The role of technical talent on teams has changed, and where it used to be that you could really get away with just being purely technical and not having those communication or collaboration skills as a technical contributor on teams, you really can't do that anymore because of the way software is developed and the way our industry has evolved. So it's really important I think for all members of the team to have those communication and collaboration skills. But I'm curious other panelists, how was the transition for you, and was it deliberate? Was it organic? And how did you?
I'd like to share another point of view, different of Daniel, because to me, as a HR, topics like just people, culture, development is part of my day. We had to support our leaders, talking every day of these topics. So we in 2019, I was almost for 2 years at the company. The business started growth, and they needed to have a new leaders in company. And before the successors we showed us, we had another problem called I want to be a leader one day. One day I want to be a leader. And I was a participant of this program, but different like this one we showed. This water was too intensive. Just 2 days talking about skills of leadership and management. Many content for 2 days, and obvious I was not completely ready for the new challenge, but I accept. As Daniel, I think I work hard to be a great leader, and had to study about leadership content, people, feedbacks, develops. But I realized that in practice is much more difficult than in theory. So I need to invest more time in this. Então, that's it. The company helped me to be a leader, but I had to push myself to search contents and study the topics from leadership.
I can add, I have mixed of the same thing. I started in a small company, and I took leadership. Technical leadership was just kind of like a natural thing I was just used to. And I realized I did like planning, like figuring out what comes off, and release planning kind of stuff was easy enough for me too. But as soon as someone, I think like 6-7 years into Red Hat, someone asked me, "Do you want to be a manager?" And I said, "I don't know what a manager is." And I realized actually I never had a manager. So in Red Hat, we work very independent. Each group works fairly independently. And I just managed to deliver what I needed to do. So no one actually ever told me to do something else. But I didn't know what a manager. It felt like this scary thing, or unknown at least. But when when my wife became pregnant and I realized things might change, I had to do something. And at the time in Red Hat, there wasn't that much focus on bringing up managers like you seem to be doing, which is awesome. That has changed very much now. Now there's like trainings and programs, it's all good. But in my case, I found a podcast called Manager Tools, which basically saved my life in being very practical. It explained what a manager does, or rather, if you do these 4 things, then you'll be better than 90% of other managers out there, which is basically you do one-on-ones, you talk to your people, you give feedback, both positive and negative, you delegate, and you coach people. And those are all words I knew from before, but I didn't know how they worked. So I would say for me, the transition was that I had to I had to have my wife being pregnant for me to actually dare to go out in there. I wish I had been around now where there is all these focus on become managers. But the one thing I learned was at least 2 parts was that the skill of management can be learned. You don't have to be it helps you good leader, but you don't have to, like, the skills a people manager has to do is very different than a technical leadership. It helps if there's overlap, but the good thing is if you're a good technical guy that knows your bits and bytes and your architecture and stuff, you can also just learn the skills to be a people manager. It's not for everybody, but you can. And the one thing I always, when I try and mentor people now, is the big thing to remember is relationship is everything. Like, you can remove all your technical skills and whatever, but the key thing is to build and talk to people and understand what they're doing. Once you understand what they're doing, you can help you can lead them, and that's what made me kind of suddenly go like, oh, this is actually something you can learn by these things.
Yeah, I think, Max, what you just said reminded me of a Simon Sinek quote that I enjoy, which is, the one with the best people skills always wins. And yes. I often tell that to developers that I work with, or when I go to speak at conferences, and when people ask about this is, how can I differentiate myself? And I think that really is, how you can do it, because as a hiring manager, I can tell you, I would prefer to work with someone that can collaborate easier with the rest of the people on the team, get along better, because as a manager, it makes my life easier rather than having to go in and solve conflicts throughout my day. That team members can work together and produce a product of higher quality. What about you, Helena? You want to talk about your transition a little bit?
I actually haven't been through the transition yet, but I work developing people to make the transition. So the presentation we just made was actually a case of building this program where we could help our employees to develop those skills and be ready to assume a leadership role. So just to clarify what I was saying, I didn't mean like to say that there is a wrong way or a right way to become a leader. What I meant was only that if you have the chance to prepare yourself for the challenge, there is a lot of things that you have to learn, that you can go after to learn about how to manage people and how to be able to solve conflicts and to manage time better and to understand how to work with other people. And this would be a good way to start to making this transition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think another thing that really helps is to actually tell people that you're interested. I think the way that oftentimes people get promoted from technical roles into management roles is they're the best technical person. And just because you're the best technical person doesn't necessarily mean that you want to be a manager. It's just that a lot of times inside companies, that's the progression. If you want to advance your career, you would move, up into management, but that's not necessarily the case. So I always encourage people to share and let people in your network know that that's what you want to do. Oftentimes people are hesitant to do that, but I think that can be a first step to take. But Helena, mentioned something that I think it would be interesting to talk about, which is skill gaps, right? So when you made that transition, what were the skill gaps that you found, and how did you identify them? I think Max talked a little bit about it with the resource that he found. And obviously we know in 2021, podcasts are exploding, so there's lots of those, but maybe share about some of the skill gaps that you identified in making transition from technical to leadership and how you address those.
For me, the biggest one, the one I didn't realize until I went through it, was I thought I knew the team I was working with. Like we talked and chats and stuff. But it wasn't until I went on this manager tools and they introduced me to the concept of one-on-ones. Before, I always just talked in a group with people or face-to-face in a team meeting or something. But it all changed when I sat down and had these like half-hour talks with people, and they could talk first. And they get to tell about what was on their mind. And then I realized, oh, there was someone here going through a divorce, or there was someone who was getting a kid, or there was someone who had some event going on, which explained why the team was more stressed than usual. And being able to look behind those things that you normally don't see in a technical discussion helped me immensely. And it also, I think, made the team understand me better of what was going on. So that was my biggest, the one I always fall back to. Like, if everything goes wrong, just reach out to a person, have a conversation with them, and most likely you'll find out that there's something based, like some simple cause of some conflict behind it. Obviously, that's my biggest one. Realizing that. Basically.
I think as you said, Heather, the transition from technical to leader, we had to, as a company, we usually hire people thinking in hard skills, but we had to develop soft skills, and it's so much easier to do to develop hard and not soft, because you just hire the people, hire the person of fits your culture. And when you have a leader position, you already have a person who has the feature of your culture company. And we believe that you don't, when you are in a leader position, you do less technical things than you are in an analyst or specialist position.
Yes, definitely. Well, I think, yeah, technical skills you can get from reading a book or taking a class online. People skills, you really need practice with other humans, practice the interactions. They're harder to acquire, but definitely, as Max said, it's not something that, either you're born one way or you're not, and you can't develop those skills. Everyone can develop those skills, and it may take some people longer to practice if they haven't done so in their past, but it's possible for anyone to do it.
Yeah.
Did you want to share anything, Daniel? Go ahead.
Yeah, reminded me about Henry Mintzberg. He shares that we need managers, not MBAs. And he also says that we need people who can manage, not exactly managers. We need people who can manage. So that's the way I think about management nowadays. Like management is a skill. You can use it to manage a project or a group of people or a subject that you need to take care of. But deciding to have that as 100% of your time is a big question. Like, do I want it? Or no, you have to do technical and you also have to do people skills, and it's all yours. So, I'm breaking this down in the company I'm working right now, saying that, you want to be technical, that's cool. You're going to be a whole technical career, and, don't bother about take care of people. We're going to handle that in a different way. So I'm starting to make sure that people are deciding in which skills they want to focus, and also thinking about the Mintzberg thing, like, okay, but you have to know how to manage. You may not decide, because at least you need to manage your life. I remember a meeting I was a couple of years ago, more than that. And someone at the meeting came up with a line like, I can't even manage my life. How do you want me to manage this? So I was like, whoa. Too much information I was thinking about at the moment. Like we didn't need that sort of information at the moment. But this is because, like you said, you guys said before, like he's the best technical person we have here, so that person should become the manager. And that's when you start breaking the team, because you're not gonna find that technical skill again, or you're gonna need a lot of time to bring that again to the team. So those are the things I'm thinking about right now a lot. Like, do you want it? Do you want to test it? Okay, we can test it. Let's do some sort of internship. Like you can learn about this new role and see if you want to play it more or not. But it's not a lifetime decision,
Yeah, I think you got to a point that it sounds like the most important for me, which is leaders who are ready to develop future leadership. So you have to not only request from your team to be great technical, to deliver great technicals deliveries, but also you have to give them the chance to test and like try to be and develop those people skills. And this is gonna make the transition much easier, and it's gonna make it easier to have people ready to assume your role whenever you need to leave the company or whenever you need to leave your position. And looking to the future, I think this is something that would sound really good if we have groups of people working, and that they had also both the technical and the people skills, and that they these skills would be developed so that they would not have to rely only on one leader. We could have other people being able to manage time and manage the projects together and not rely on only one person. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think people want good leaders. So definitely, I think some of the studies I've read, that ultimately comes down to whether a person will stay or leave in a job is who their manager is and if they're providing good leadership. So it's a key reason of retaining and attracting talent. So I think companies definitely are starting to recognize the value of, like Max said, previously that wasn't something that was necessarily focused on, especially within technical companies, but now, more and more those resources and the value of leadership and management skills and of, people skills in general. I try not to call it soft skills because I feel like that definitely has kind of like a negative or lesser value connotation to it in terms of language, because I think they definitely can be and are even more important than the technical skills. So yeah, definitely I understand what you're saying. And definitely for the folks who are listening to this session, feel free to ask questions. I had a couple more questions that I thought would be interesting for the panelists to share with you. So I'm curious about role models. So that's something often that I think some of you, when you were talking, touched on that. So role models, I think, have a big role. Role models have a role to play, right, in terms of that transition to leadership or management. So can you share a little bit about some of your role models and how you help to leverage those? And I think that kind of dovetails into what I often hear, and maybe that's, because I'm a woman working mostly with men, but sometimes, women will come to me and ask me, how did I find mentors and how do you go about finding mentors? So role models and mentors, what role did they play for you? And, and I think there's kind of that uncomfortableness with, will you be my mentor conversation? So, if you have any tips on how you addressed that.
I'll say mine is, the weird thing is I didn't have one, and that caused me not to do these things. So the one I would say is that, because I actually went back and asked some people, like, why didn't you give me feedback earlier or something like that? And the answer I got back, well, you were doing fine as a tech, like you were doing the right technical things, so that was all good. So what I tell people, now I have a personal mission of actually trying to be a mentor for as many people as I can, to be the one that just can, encourage people to go a little bit more forward. But for those who might be in the same situation where they don't feel like they can't find anyone, I would just try and just ask your actual manager, or ask someone like your parents, or even your like siblings or family that does this, because I think many people actually would like to talk about the experience, but they're just not sure that who actually is ready to receive them. So I'll say for everyone, if you feel like you are lost and you don't have any role models, just ask. Like, the worst you're gonna get is like, sorry, not now, and then you go on to the next one. So yeah,
I think that's true. And oftentimes what I've done is I won't make it formal. I'll just take the opportunity to have a quick conversation, say I want to ask you something and get some feedback, and then go back and incorporate that, and then come back to them a few weeks later. Yeah, that was great. Now maybe I have another question.
And that's another thing of this thing about asking, is also like, do a small ask. Don't ask for, do you want to be a mentor for 6 years or 3? Like, just, hey, do you want to have feedback, or a small thing? Because you can do that 1,000 times and no one will notice, but you'll get better every time. that you do that little exercise. Yeah.
And I think that's why I like to say role model, because internally in my mind, I'm using them as a role model, and I might ask for feedback, and then I haven't asked for a commitment. Plínio, were you about to say something when I was starting to speak, or someone was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but my experience with my ex-leader was such a great experience that I invited her to be my mentor now. When I was invited to be a leader, I realized that I need a mentor to discuss things about leadership and management skills. And this really helped me in the curve of learning to develop these skills. We usually have a mentoring once a month when we discuss the main difficulties that I had as a leader. And after 2 years, we are still in contact. We both still work at the same company, and we still trade through the thoughts about leadership, human resource process. And I have my manager too, and we have a good relationship. We have feedbacks, we have one-on-ones. But the mentor is another thing, is another relationship that helped you to be when you are in this position. They think with another with another point of view than you and the routine you are in.
Yeah. So it sounds like maybe a little more of a formal role for you in terms of in your career, Plínio. What about Helena or Daniel? You want to share about your role models or mentor relationships?
Yeah, I was thinking about this in I believe it was 2001 was the first time I was, you are to take care of this right now. So I was 21 to 22 years old, and I don't have a clue about what I should do here, but let me get some books and things that was, people were saying things about it. And so I have started learning about people like, I studied about Seneca. I have studied about Domenico Di Masi late in 2002, Ricardo Semler. So those readings were, I believe it was good for me because I started learning other management styles, let's say that, and it was like, that's not me. It's not gonna work. Like I can control people. I don't tell them to obey me. That's not the idea. So when I learned about Semler and other, Mintzberg, so those were people that I get related very easily, and I would say my role models were basic on these readings. But I also had one of the companies I work for, there was this person called Renato Quedas, and he was the presenter of the tool. It was the Delphi at the time, and he showed everything about the tool and language and how can we play it with it. And he was doing a lot of training, and I was like, I want to talk like that guy. I want to be a presenter just like that guy. So later I started studying about neurolinguistics programming, and one of the tools that you learn on NLP is about modeling. So how can you model the excellence of someone and start, being more about that. So kind of when I'm going to start talking in a presentation, I go, okay, help me, Renato, go for, to do the presentation. So this is very good when you have those sort of, it could not be even a real connection. Derek Silver says that if you need help, you find a mentor, decide someone who is your mentor, write an email before you're going to send the email, review the email after you think you have received the answer from them. So change your email to the next email. And he says that maybe when you do like 2 or 3 times, you got the answer you need. when you're thinking that you are talking to that real person or something like that. But I believe we grew a lot, like having different role models. I would say you told about Simon Sinek, Brené Brown. So you're gonna find people who can help you when you start building your skills and how you communicate, how do you listen, how do you play as a team and things like that. So, but Ricardo Semler would be one, and Seneca would be other, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, Dan. I think readings are, great to do. And like you mentioned, I think also leadership styles. So through reading, you can come across, you can start to discover what feels more natural to you. And I think also, there's certain books you can read, that talk about, applying different styles based on the situation that you're in the company, whether that takes a more consensus approach or a consultant decide approach, or more of a servant model of leadership. So I think the books can be great sources for role models as well. Helena, did you have anything to add from the perspective of role models or mentors in your career?
Yeah. I don't actually think there is such thing as the perfect leader who is going to be the person who is going to inspire me with all the skills I want to develop. And the way I like to face this is having different leaders being kind of not formal, but kind of mentors in the skills I want to develop. So I have someone who I look up to, that I want to talk like that person talks in a public presentation. And there is another one who I know who has the skills of time management that I want to develop. So I try to take all the opportunities to interact with those people and take the best of them for myself. And then, of course, ask for feedback and see if I'm going in the right way. But I like to have options and not look only for one person, because I really think that as more, if you're open to other people and to meet other people, to work with different people, the more you're gonna develop different skills that you have to develop to be a great leader in the future. So that's how I try to develop my leadership skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think also sometimes getting feedback is uncomfortable. So sometimes you have to actually ask for the feedback. So I think what I found oftentimes with people that I'm looking to provide feedback to me, I have to actually ask, especially asking for areas of improvement. So it's easier to tell people what they're doing well, but what can you improve on? So there's always something that can be improved on. So I think, if you're not getting that feedback, go out and consciously ask for it, directly ask for that feedback. And then when you receive it, put yourself in that mindset of, understanding that, or being receptive to receiving it. So I think that sometimes can be challenging, right? Without getting defensive or, trying to receive it in a way that this is to help you in your career, as versus, I think the intent, realizing the intention helps you to receive the feedback and to implement it better into your skill set. Do you have any experiences with that you wanted to share in terms of providing feedback or receiving feedback, or how that's helped you in your career? Or any ideas for preparing yourself for that, or soliciting that kind of feedback and helping you to grow and transition into more of a leadership role from a technical role or technical skill set?
Yeah, I think you have to be intentional, as you said, and there is no one who is more in charge of your career than yourself. Like you can't expect that someone is going to come to you and voluntarily tell you what you have to do and how you're going to get better. I mean, some people can do that, but they're not going to be looking at your career and developing the way you want to go by themselves. This is something that it's in your hands. So you have to be intentional. You have to go after the feedbacks. And this is something that I think you have to be ready, prepare yourself to hear something that it's going to be hard to hear, but understand that that's not personal. That's something that the person is trying to do to help you, like just telling something that is going to help you in the future, and not take it to the personal side of the story. So I that's what I do most of the time. I'm always asking for feedback, and I really try not to look to the feedbacks as something that is personal to myself. It's only something that I can develop. I'm not the best version of myself yet. I don't know if I'm gonna get to the best version. So it's not something that the person is trying to do to make you feel bad. So you can get the best out of it and try to develop new skills from the feedbacks you get.
For me, with feedback, well, I mentioned a few times, I'll keep repeating again, was realizing that the feedback I've had for many years was like every 6 months or every year, there was here's some annual review kind of thing. And it was never useful, basically, because it was always, oh, you did well, or it was always not concrete. And that was what I have learned through 6-7 years of software development. That was the kind of feedback I got, was like, whenever the salary has to be adjusted, then there was a discussion. What the manager tool stuff I refer to was this feedback model where they're basically saying, no, don't do the 3-6 month thing. Do small micro ones, which for first will make them concrete, and two, it's something you can do you can do it again and again and get better. And that model is just something that's stuck in my head, is that you first ask, are you can I give you some feedback? And if the person said no, you just walk away, because if he's not ready, then it doesn't matter what you're saying. And you say yes, which most people will do because they actually are interested in feedback. You just say, hey, and then you say something, you focus on not on the person, because as Helena says, it can be very personal. You focus on the behavior. So, for example, let's say, Helena, if you've been in a meeting with me and you've done something, let's say, hey, when you kept talking to old people, you don't do that now, but just say that was the kind of feedback I want to get. You make the rest of the people in the room not get a word in, and we don't get to hear the whole group, and that makes my job harder. And then say, can you improve on that? So you're not judging the person, you're not saying what he or she should change, but you're just saying, hey, here's the behavior you did. It had this consequence. Can you try and improve it? And the same thing when you do positive, you say, hey, Heather, when you did the panel today, I think you did an excellent moderation, and it went really well, and I felt happy, and I was very good. Keep doing that. Then there's no judgment in it, but you've gotten the feedback, whether it's bad or negative. And that little simple model was, again, one of the things that went in my brain, oh, it's a simple thing. I don't need to prepare a lot of papers or a whole 3 months. It's just this little session I can give a specific feedback on. And if you do that again and again, life is just easier for both you and the one who's receiving it. So that's my thoughts on feedback.
I think so too. I think that focusing on the behavior can help in lots of different aspects as well. I think that's one of the things I talk often with people about, unconscious bias. And I think, that's obviously can be helpful in that regard, as well as in giving your performance feedback in terms of uncovering bias. What did the person actually say or do?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I realized unintentionally when I was younger, I focused on I was saying stuff like that's dumb, or that was a weird thing to do, or that was just my natural way of talking. Yeah. And I still do it if I don't. But when I realized, hey, that actually is, that people don't. If you say that to someone, they don't hear what you're saying. They just focus on, why are you being, mean? And it's you just flip it around and go just focus on the thing, that the behavior. Then it all becomes much more clear.
Definitely. Yeah. Anyone else have anything to share about the feedback?
I like to share something about feedback. That I think that are two types of feedbacks. The feedback that is organic, is part of your day, and you talk about your team, how they are working, and what they are have to do, and showing the way clear to take the object. And the other one is the formal feedback or the one-on-ones. That if you have already done the feedback, the organic feedback, the one-on-one is such a talk and expectation alignment. You in the one-on-one, I personally I like to have a method, and that I prepare topics that I will discuss with my team, and such as how they are going out of the company, to because their personal lives matters to their performance, and if they are bad, they are having bad time in their personal lives, probably their performances will not be good as they are in a, if they are good, they do well. And we talk about their last month or last weeks that passed, and what was the delivers that they're really proud of, and what delivers they are don't like, but they have to do. And so I can see what type of jobs motivate him, and what's not. And the other things we like to pass in the feedback, but always end a conversation asking, like you said, Heather, asking for them to give me, as a leader, a feedback, so I can improve my skills, my management skills to as a leader. And I think you create a space of a space that you can share opinions and share, and give, and let them comfortable to talk to you as a leader, and so you can improve. You will have a better, a great ambient, a great space to work, and you have a employee that will know what the company expected from him. Has to. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I agree.
On mute. I was just gonna say that I agree with Plínio about trying to make it so that people feel that they can give you feedback too. But just one thing, realize, even if you give the best feedback and let them do something, there will be people who won't give you any feedback just because you are their manager or their technical leader. That was something I had to struggle with. Because I was like, why are you not? I told you this. Why are you not telling me back? And that, you just realize that some people just don't feel like it, and then others, because you have, if you're the manager, you have a power they don't have, and therefore they won't share, and that's okay. That just something be, try and enable it, but don't expect that it.
Yeah.
Give it.
Most of all, don't give you hard feedbacks. But when you receive a hard feedback that once marks you, and you probably will think about this and develop the competence, the skills to be a better leader, that you don't want to happen again. The situation that comes in feedback. Então, so I believe that feedbacks, constructive feedbacks, is one that will mark you as a leader, as an employee, and is more important than good feedbacks only. good feedback is important too, to know you, to know what is expected from you, but the constructive is the one that makes you stronger.
Yeah, and I think people do know over the course of their career, they'll know, who's giving direct, honest feedback and who's telling you what you want to hear. And I think, consistently you'll go back to get that authentic feedback. So I think, as someone providing feedback, that's, a valuable thing that you can be known to provide to people, is being able to provide that feedback in a way that is constructive, like you said.
And by the way, just for someone who's in a career, and again, this, I also realized that, well, because before I was a manager, I was like, oh, manager is this, I don't know, special, like he has an important job to do, and I don't want to disturb him, kind of thing. But then when I became a manager, I realized that the most valuable thing was actually when I heard from the director or people I was working with, like, feedback freely, and that was actually the most useful thing. So now when I'm back to being a non-manager, I do actually give my manager feedback, even just stuff that he did well, or I think, or something that I heard, because I realize that's actually some of the stuff that manager can really, really need, because he's not there every minute of the day working on the problems, so he doesn't see it. So I would say people shouldn't be afraid, telling the manager, like, whatever feedback they have. It's some of the most valuable thing they can get to get their job done. So.
And I think the other thing that's important to note, and I think, Max, your situation kind of reminded me of that. And I think, people can kind of wait to be appointed a leader, or they can start to be a leader. Kind of back to, Daniel's experience in terms of, organically stepping up and taking on leadership roles. And also individual contributors can, you don't have to necessarily wait to be appointed into a quote unquote leadership or management role, but any suggestions for, taking those steps as an individual contributor in a technical role, suggestions for things that people can do to start demonstrating leadership in the current role that they're in?
Yeah, one of the ways I did it, in 2002, I was invited to be part of the coordination of the Java users group from Rio Grande do Sul. So here in Porto Alegre, which is it's considered the first drug from Brazil back in 1996. And so I used that opportunity to be part of a community where we should schedule events, we should prepare for gatherings with the community and find people to speak and find venues to be presenting and get people together. So I kind of used that opportunity to improve my skills of talking and negotiating, and how do I schedule and organize events, and things like that. So I always use it, community related things, to improve my skills when it goes for managing things, managing projects, or making better events, or maybe giving feedback to people, because it's voluntary. You have to make people to do the job, and you can't really count on people to do stuff. So I would say, go do something, maybe not exactly in your company, or maybe you can get a new project inside the company, so you can improve some of the skills that you want to improve. Not exactly becoming a leader of people, but becoming a leader of something, of a project, of a monthly event. That would be a start. I would go for something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one of the top tips I give to people, is getting involved in the community. So it's great to hear that example in terms of, obviously with the Java community, get involved with the Jug, but, whatever technology you're working with, there are user groups proliferating. Also getting involved in open source projects, right? I know there's a little bit of, debate in terms of, well, I already have my full-time job. Why must I also contribute to open source? But it is a great way to demonstrate leadership. So not a requirement, but definitely a great way to showcase leadership skills. Does anyone else have any examples of things to do?
I'll agree with Daniel, but I'll say if you're not in a situation where you have either time or you're not in a place where there is much community, I mean, maybe you're in a bigger company. As a company always has things that goes on, whether that's a social arrangement that has to happen or the manager has a little side project that he's busy with, but sorry, not busy, but there's some project comes up, and then don't be afraid of just saying, hey, I might be able to do that, even if you don't know what it is. And work with that and get there, and just take the opportunities to do things that are outside your normal area. Another thing is just network with people and try and go to meetups and talk, and there you might find some natural places to do. And even if it doesn't become like managing a thing, but just as Daniel says, like presenting and discussing and negotiating and stuff is all skills that you need every day as a leader in some form.
Yeah, I think that's also especially when there are time constraints, like you said, Max. What I always like to do and encourage people to do is understand what are the priorities of your manager and your manager's manager, and try to find something that's going to make you stand out in those areas. And then also, the social aspect. So while, again, that's a time sink, and sometimes, you can become known as the person who does that. Organizing social events does give you an opportunity to interface with people outside of your immediate circle, and oftentimes a few levels above you, which is important for visibility. Helena or Plínio, you have anything to share about that aspect?
I agree with everything you guys said, but something that is actually an example of how I believe that the mindset of lifelong learning needs to be something that is around when you're thinking about your career. Our participants in this conference is something that is quite the example for me, because I have never done something like this before. And a friend of ours at WIS, she said, a coordinator, she said, Helena, what do you think about doing that? And I was like, well, I never done that, but let's go, let's do it. And this is something that is in learning opportunity. So I'm taking it. It's not going to be the best thing I've ever done. It's not going to be my best presentation, but I'm here to learn. I'm like putting myself out there to see what's going to work, what didn't work, and learn from this experience and develop those skills I want to develop to make better presentations and be the professional I want to be in the future. So that was a great example for me.
Yeah, just like Helena, for me is a new challenge, the main to push myself in the new scenario. But here we are talking and a conversation that of seeing that we are simply loving, that is people is developing, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, I think definitely with public speaking, I mean, commendable to do it. I always encourage people, you're not going to get better at doing it until you actually do it. So, and also acting on your potential, right? You don't have to prove that you are an excellent public speaker. You have the potential to be, and act on your potential rather than, having to prove it first before you actually go and do it. Is focus on your potential. Okay, final question before we wrap it up. And again, any questions, go ahead and feel free to put them in the chat if anyone else has questions or things. But one of the things that I thought would be good to close with is, what do you wish that you would have known in your journey to leadership that you didn't know that you know now? So, what do you wish you would have known that you know now in your journey? that's still ongoing, of course, but focusing in particular on the topic at hand, which is, shifting or transitioning into more of a leadership role.
Well, for me, I mentioned some of them, like relationships is all that matters. Well, it's not all that matters. It's the most important thing. That skills for a manager can be learned. Like I don't know why, but I had the books I read and the things I had in my mind, it was presented as, okay, good. Yes, you can become a good leader, but it's best if you actually are a natural leader. And I was like, how does that? So then there's no point, because I didn't see myself as a good leader.
Yeah.
But it can be taught, and also change is hard, but there's always a sunny day afterwards. When you become a manager, you suddenly have to make decisions that you were not used to, and I had a hard time doing it, and I still do sometimes. But I've learned that, hey, just making this, it's better to make a decision even if it's the wrong one than not making a decision. That's the worst you can do. And again, just by trying doing it again and again, it's better. And then I'm not sure, I knew this before, but I know a lot of people don't think so. But it's like, just because you try and become a manager for 6 months or a year or two, doesn't mean you always have to be a manager. You can always go back. And in that case, you're probably even a better employee, because you now know how things work.
Yeah.
That's for that. I personally decided to step back because time zones and stuff didn't work out. So I wanted to make more of my kids. So I said, no, I'm not going to be a manager. But I'm not excluding it. Like, I've done it now for a few years. I might do it again, 5 years in the future when the kids are older. But that's just the thing. Yeah, you can always, kind of go back and forth.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. A career path doesn't have to be linear, and it doesn't have to be any certain way.
Yes.
That you think is prescribed, and I think you can create your own path.
For me, is the main topic we are discussing, the technical from leadership, and I have to hear from my team that you don't have to be technical anymore. We know about your responsibility and your potential, and you could be just our manager and help us to solve the problem being a technical. And for me, this was a game changing. And I start to, then I stopped to doing the technical things and start being a real manager, a real leader that my team needs. So I didn't have anyone to tell me that I need to stop being a technical person, but I had a team that told me this, and this was a real moment, a moment that marked me.
Okay.
I don't think I had that experience yet, but I'll come back in the future and tell you guys when I become a leader.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would go for management styles. If I learned that, the first thing I learned about it was you can choose your way. And maybe the way you manage is not even invented yet, so you can be cool about it. Because we usually try to copy other people what they are doing, but you have to find out who you are when you are managing something. Same thing goes about parenting. Max can tell that. So we start copying things, and I have this book like a baby manual. It's very fun because it looks like a baby. It never works because it's all different, And the same thing goes when you have a team. It's a different team. If you change one person, the team can change completely. So you have to find your principles and how you play with the whole thing. But if I knew more about management styles, I would get easier on the role, I would say. So it will be better.
That, when you say management styles, I also think about communication styles, like the fact that it also took me a while to realize, at least I realized once I learned it that, I've done this mistake again and again, is you have a tendency to communicate the way to people as you communicate to them. Like you have a fallback communication style. Some is very detailed, some is very high level. And there's things like, it's called DISC and other things. And those, if you asked me 10 years ago, I'm like, no, that's just putting people in boxes. But no, it's not. It's just that people have tendency to fall into them. And what you learn is if you can detect how a person actually best receive information and adapt your communication to that style, you will be more successful because they will listen and you'll probably get what you need. And that was a thing that I also was like, yeah, sometimes it makes sense to go in details and sometimes go up a higher level. And adapting that is a key skill to learn, which I didn't believe existed before, but now I know it does.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main things that I've learned in my travels. So I'm traveling to different countries, working in other countries, and I'm actually doing a panel about this tomorrow, but it's the mirror neurons, right? So mirroring other people's behavior. I mean, that can be, one of the most effective ways to adapt when you're working with new people is to really observe them and mirror back to them what they're doing. And that's exactly what you're talking about, Max, in terms of the communication style, adapting it to the other person. So I found that to be really effective. And I think also what you spoke about, Daniel, in terms of leadership style, I think that propensity to want to be like have every checkbox or every attribute of a leader to before you can be successful. But really you can't be successful at everything, and your style can't adapt to every different leader that you see around you. But it's focusing more on being more you, or being more organic to what your strengths are, and bringing those out in your leadership style. And I think you can find that through reading different books that talk about different leadership styles, or role models, like we also talked about, and seeing that I like how the person does this, and trying to follow some of their examples, but obviously adapting it to what works best for you, rather than trying to model yourself after everyone else. Because if it's not authentically you, it won't necessarily be as successful if that's not your authentic style and way of behaving.
And just one thing, I think you said in the beginning, but I'll just repeat it, is well, you call them soft skills, but these skills we talk about, I think all of them, everyone who is working with people, even if it's just two-person, will benefit from it. You don't have to be aiming for being manager. These skills are useful to learn, even if you never want to be a manager.
Right.
So
to be a more valuable member of a team, right?
Yeah, but so that's one thing, which is it's true, but also it makes your life easier. Like I spent many days and nights being frustrating about some person because I'm like, why are they doing that? Mm-hmm. And I learned by becoming a people manager that, hey, just reach out to people and ask how things going will help you, right? And that's something I think a lot of people, especially in these days of Corona days where we don't meet each other in the hallway and something, it's just over video call, just having that similar question of how you're doing, instead of always being about a technical thing, makes things easier. So,
I think the power of connection, human connection, is essential. And I think also when we talk about even machine learning and automation, how all our jobs are going to be erased, that again, all those skills is what is providing your value more and more in the future. Even if the technical things are being more and more automated, providing those skills of communication and collaboration and connection, that's always going to be required for society to continue to function in the future.
Yeah.
Did you have something to add, Plínio? It looked like you were about to say something. No. Okay, he was leaving. That was what it was. It looked like he was trying to unmute himself. We
Yeah.
are
I
just
think
about
he's-
out of time. So I want to thank all of you panelists, Plínio, Helena, Max, and Daniel for joining us and sharing your insights with us about your careers. I think I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone who listened also learned a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Plínio's
Heather.
rejoining. Here he is.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Heather.
I was just thanking everyone, Plínio. Sorry we lost you. Thanks for dedicating the time. Learned a lot. Hope you enjoyed the experience. Enjoy the rest of
Thank you, Heather. Thank you all.